Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The midday sun bathed Washington, D.C. in a harsh, relentless light. On the Grand Avenue leading to the Pentagon, General Marcus Jefferson, a black man of rare presence, walked proudly, his immaculate uniform reflecting decades of exemplary service in the U.S. military. Passers-by turned respectfully at the sight of him, acknowledging his rank and aura. But that day, fate seemed to have chosen a dark path. Police officer Ryan Caldwell, a white man with an authoritarian air and a hard stare, spotted him through his windshield while on patrol. For no apparent reason, and without recognizing the general's uniform or rank, Caldwell approached abruptly and demanded that Jefferson stop. "Sir, you must follow me immediately," he ordered, his voice trembling with barely contained hostility. Marcus Jefferson, surprised but calm, replied politely. "Officer, I am General Marcus Jefferson, Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Army." But Caldwell, sure of his judgment and blinded by his prejudices, didn't listen. He abruptly grabbed the general's arm and forced him to his knees on the crowded sidewalk. Passers-by stepped aside in shock. Some took out their phones to film this humiliating scene, a black man, a war hero, brought low by a white police officer who knew nothing of his identity. The minutes dragged on like an eternity. General Jefferson, unperturbed despite the humiliation and the pain of the pressure on his joints, simply stared at Caldwell with icy intensity. Every fiber of his being declared that he would never forget this insult, and that justice would be served. Meanwhile, the shadow of power loomed over the scene. Cameras, phones, passers-by, everything would bear witness to a mistake that would unleash a storm, not only for Caldwell, but for the entire police and military hierarchy. Because humiliating a black man wasn't just an ordinary injustice. Here, the man humiliated was Marcus Jefferson, a respected general, a symbol of discipline, courage, and loyalty to his country. And no one, absolutely no one, was going to remain silent in the face of what he had just endured. No sooner had the incident occurred than videos filmed by bystanders flooded social media. On Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, Marcus Jefferson's grim face on the ground contrasted sharply with Ryan Caldwell's arrogant gaze. Within hours, the scene went viral, triggering a mixture of anger, outrage, and disbelief across the country. In his office, General Jefferson, finally free, cleaned the dust off his uniform. His hands trembled slightly, but his mind remained cool and methodical. He knew that this humiliation was not merely personal, it damaged the image of the army and the dignity of all those he represented. "We'll handle this strategically," he murmured to his aide, Captain Elena Morrison. "No impulsive anger. The world needs to see the truth." Meanwhile, Ryan Caldwell was summoned to the police station for an internal interview. Little did he know that Marcus Jefferson's shadow was already following him. The cameras, the networks, and above all, the general's influential contacts would soon transform an unjust arrest into a national scandal. The following day, the headlines in the media were damning. General Marcus Jefferson humiliated by a police officer, white, the nation in revolt. An act of racism in the street, Washington under the shock. The mayors and Pentagon's advisors sprang into action. General Jefferson, for his part, knew he had to play on two fronts, have his authority recognized and protect his reputation, while preparing the response that would expose Caldwell for what he truly was. In the shadows, Ryan Caldwell began to feel a mixture of anxiety and arrogance. He thought he could defend himself, but he didn't know that every move was now being scrutinized, every word analyzed. He had just unleashed a storm he would never control. And amidst all this, Marcus Jefferson, unflappable and strategic, was already planning his next move. The lesson would be harsh, but it would be just. The following morning, Washington was in turmoil. Television stations had broadcast the footage of the incident repeatedly, and commentary was rife. Some openly condemned the police officer, while others sought to downplay the matter. But one thing was clear, Marcus Jefferson's name was on everyone's lips. In the Pentagon lobby, Jefferson walked with a calm but determined stride. The media were waiting for him, microphones pointed at him, and photographers captured his every move. He showed neither anger nor fear. His gaze, steady and penetrating, sent a clear message: he would not be humiliated with impunity. "General Jefferson, what is your response to the accusations against Officer Caldwell?" asked a reporter, his camera pointed at him. "I do not react to the ignorance of one man," Jefferson replied with quiet dignity. "But I refuse to let anyone think that the color of my skin makes me less law-abiding or less worthy of my country." A few streets away, Ryan Caldwell was attending an internal meeting with his superior. He had tried to justify his actions with clumsy excuses. "I didn't know. I thought he..." But his words rang hollow in the face of media pressure. Officials, aware of the impact on the reputation of the police and on public opinion, regarded him with suspicion and irritation. That day, Jefferson decided to go on the offensive. He contacted his support network, composed of high-ranking officers, former colleagues, and influential lawyers, and prepared an official statement. He demanded not only a public apology but also an independent investigation into Caldwell's conduct. Social media exploded with reactions. Some protested outside the police station, others shared accounts of discrimination experienced by black soldiers. The story was taking on a national dimension, and Caldwell was beginning to realize that this was not a simple isolated incident. Meanwhile, Jefferson remained in control. He knew he had to stay calm and strategic, letting anger and panic consume Caldwell. Every move Caldwell made was being watched, every word recorded. Revenge, if it came, would be ruthless and public. And in the hushed corridors of the Pentagon, Marcus Jefferson gave a faint smile. The game wasn't over yet, but he already knew he was going to win, and that Caldwell was going to pay for his mistake. A few days later, Ryan Caldwell no longer recognized his life. Videos of his humiliating act continued to circulate across all social media platforms, accompanied by outraged comments and demands for immediate punishment. Every time his phone vibrated, he dreaded another email or message publicly naming him as the culprit. At the police station, Caldwell's superiors were conducting an internal investigation. But the political and media pressures were so intense that no decision could be made behind closed doors. Those in charge knew that this incident had gone beyond a simple confrontation between a police officer and a civilian. Here, the humiliated man was an army general, a national symbol of discipline and respect. Meanwhile, Marcus Jefferson remained calm and strategic. With the help of his legal team, he issued an official statement demanding a public apology, sanctions for Caldwell, and reforms regarding respect for the authority and dignity of military officers in interactions with civilian police. The general didn't just talk the talk, he also contacted influential journalists, sharing his story, his full version of events, and documentation proving his rank and role in the army. The media pressure quickly became unbearable for Caldwell and his superiors. The police officer, meanwhile, was beginning to feel the weight of the repercussions, colleagues avoiding him, internal denunciations, and the accusing gaze of his superiors. His initial arrogance had vanished, replaced by anguish and shame. He understood that every action he had taken that day would be meticulously scrutinized, and that public opinion would not spare him. In the shadows, Marcus Jefferson was preparing his final blow, not personal revenge, but a lesson in justice and honor. He knew that Caldwell could no longer act with impunity, and that his public humiliation, amplified by the media and society, would serve as an example. On that day, Marcus Jefferson understood something essential: true strength does not lie in brute authority, but in strategy, calmness, and the ability to transform injustice into a universal lesson. And for Ryan Caldwell, the storm had only just begun. The following week, the case reached its climax. A public hearing was held to examine Ryan Caldwell's conduct. Marcus Jefferson, ever calm and composed, appeared before the commission with an assurance that immediately captivated the attention of the media and the public. When he spoke, his voice was firm but measured. "I never sought confrontation," he began. "But every citizen, every officer, every member of this nation deserves respect and justice. What happened to me is not just a personal affront, it is a violation of the principles we all uphold." Images of the humiliation were projected onto a large screen, reminding everyone of the gravity of the act. The reactions were unanimous: indignation, anger, and above all, an acknowledgement that the police officer had acted out of prejudice and not necessity. Ryan Caldwell tried to defend himself, but his words rang hollow in the face of the general's determination and eloquence. His clumsy apologies could not mask the initial arrogance of his action, nor the magnitude of his mistake. The commission quickly made its decision. Caldwell was suspended, assigned disciplinary work, and placed in a diversity and respect for authority training program. His once solid reputation within the local police force was now forever tarnished. But for Marcus Jefferson, the true victory was not punitive. He had transformed the humiliation he had suffered into a public lesson, reinforcing the idea that dignity and respect cannot be trampled with impunity. The media amplified his message. A black general had been humiliated, but he had responded with strategy and honor, imposing justice and respect on a society that could no longer ignore racial injustice. At the end of the day, Jefferson left the audience to the silent applause of his supporters. He knew that his role went beyond himself. He represented the fight against injustice and the affirmation of human dignity, regardless of skin color. And somewhere along the way, Ryan Caldwell finally understood that his arrogance and prejudice had been his downfall. The lesson was clear: humiliating a black man, especially a respected general, wasn't just a stupid act, it was a personal and public disaster. Marcus Jefferson, on the other hand, walked with pride once more. His immaculate uniform reflected not only his rank, but also the triumph of justice, strategy, and dignity. Humiliation had been transformed into victory, a resounding and exemplary victory.